Hey, I'm Felissa Rose, and you're watching Keto and Crime.
Oh my goodness, guys. What a picture. Jeffrey Epstein. Hey everyone, welcome to Keto and Crime and another Keto and Crime classic. With all the filth that's come out on the Duggars and things of that nature we've been looking at, I thought I would revisit another popular pile of hot flaming garbage, and that is Jeffrey Epstein. I originally covered this case back in 2019, and I thought it was just appropriate to go ahead and, since I've already got two demonetized videos because I said I deigned to say the P word, I thought I would just go ahead and make it a triple for the week. So I hope you guys enjoy it. We're about to dive into this dumpster fire, which has now implicated such high-ranking people as Prince Andrew of the United Kingdom, the Trumps, the Clintons, just about everyone and anybody that's anything in politics and entertainment and high wealth in the world. But more importantly, I go back and kind of go over how Epstein got his fortune to begin with. No one really knew what this guy did, and for obvious reasons. So it was more about, I guess, his island than anything else, which now with Ghislaine Maxwell singing like a canary, hopefully we will be seeing a lot more about what happened here. And in this, I do entertain a conspiracy theory. I don't necessarily get into conspiracy theories. I tend to rip them apart more than I adhere to them, but I am of the opinion that maybe this dude isn't dead. There was just too many weirdnesses surrounding that day, and he certainly has the money and the influence and people that would want to protect their own reputations by not letting any of this get out. So it leads me to two theories. Either he was murdered, or he got plastic surgery, changed his identity, and is still out there somewhere. So call me crazy, but this is the one conspiracy theory I buy into. And with that being said, let's dive into 2019 𝗙𝗃𝗃 talking about this piling heap of garbage, Jeffrey Epstein. Everyone, this is a case it's taken me a while to research, and I'm going to do something different in this case that you've never seen me do before, because I usually stick to the facts, which I'm going to do 95% of the time within this one as well. But you are going to hear me offer my own opinions on some things towards the end, because this case is kind of in limbo right now. I think we all know the outcome, but I'm going to be offering my theories on why Mr. Epstein is no longer with us, and I hope you'll forgive me that, but like everyone else, I've been thinking a lot about it. So, Jeffrey Epstein was born January 20th, 1953 in New York City to Pauline and Seymour Epstein. Pauline was a teacher's aide and homemaker. Seymour worked for the New York State Department of Parks and Recreation as groundskeeper and gardener. They did grow up in a fairly good working middle class lifestyle. He was a musical prodigy by all accounts, learning to play the piano very well by the time he was 5 years old. He was extremely intelligent, did extremely well in New York public school system, graduating from Lafayette High School at age 16, having skipped 2 grades. So the man was indeed a book learning genius. He was very highly intelligent, very gifted in mathematics. He went on to pursue a degree in mathematics from NYU, though he dropped out in 1971, having never completed a degree, but that did not stop him from getting a job as a mathematics teacher at the prestigious Dalton School in Manhattan, which was a private school that educated children of the ultra wealthy and the Manhattan jet set. He was hired by the school's headmaster and board members. In 1972, when he took the job, we didn't have a whole lot of stake in degrees like we do now. They were great to have, but since it was a private school and not really governed by the same regulations as public schools, he was able to be hired based on the college work he had done, even though he didn't have a degree. While teaching at the Dalton School, he was teaching the children of Alan Greenberg, the then chairman and CEO of Bear Stearns. Mr. Greenberg took a liking to young Mr. Epstein, thought he was incredibly bright, had a big future ahead of him in finance, and persuaded him to leave his teaching job and come on as a junior trader at Bear Stearns, which he did. From 1975 to 1980-81, roughly, he rose through the ranks at Bear Stearns, even becoming a limited partner in 1981. Managing millions, hundreds of millions in assets and doing quite well for his clients. And then in 1981, even as a limited partner, he was asked to leave the firm for what he described as going against their major statutes. Like every company kind of has a corporate vision, and he was asked to leave because he did not meet with their corporate vision. Now, some say because he did hobnob with high-level Democrats at the time, such as the Clintons and Donald Trump, who was a Democrat at the time, that maybe he was in favor of way too much regulation on Wall Street, which Wall Street did not like at that time. And at the time, you had Reagan in power, who was trying to scale back a lot of that regulation. So they think maybe he was asked to leave because he believed they should be a little more tightly regulated than they wanted to be. But that is just speculation. Those records were sealed. We have no idea why he was asked to leave Bear Stearns, though he did remain a client of Bear Stearns with actually billions under management until their collapse in 2008, when he lost a significant portion of his investment due to the failure of the investment bank. But that didn't deter Epstein. He launched his own company, Intercontinental Assets Group, 1981, which to all accounts was a very unique type of business. Epstein himself called it a bounty hunter within corporate America. And what he literally did is help people that had lost investments or lost money due to unscrupulous business deals and bad advice on unlawful investments retrieve their money. And he did help quite a few people, including a lot of foreign investors, get money back out of bad deals by simply going in and strong-arming them. The type of tactics Epstein used were, because he became a multimillionaire working for Bear Stearns, so he had resources, he had means to deal with things in unconventional ways, and so he was able to recover well into the hundreds of millions of dollars for his clients and took a hefty chunk of that home with him as a result. So it was found that he had multiple passports from multiple different countries based on his connections with foreign powers. We're talking about high-powered sheiks in Saudi Arabia. We're talking about billionaires in Austria and Germany. We're talking about the royal family and former Prime Minister Tony Blair in the UK. He was a very close friend of Prince Andrew, the Duke of York. He had means to get things that other people couldn't have. So he had literally passports from several foreign countries and passed himself off as a secret agent for the CIA. In 1987, he became connected with Stephen Hoffenberg, who ran the Tower Financial Group Corp, and actually went to work for them as a consultant. This financial corporation was found to be nothing more than a Ponzi scheme along the scales of Bernie Madoff in 1993. Epstein's connection to that is still unknown because those records were kind of sealed, although Stephen Hoffenberg was convicted and sentenced to prison as a result of the ramifications of that Ponzi scheme. In 1988, he did break ties after about 18 months with Tower Financial and to form his own another group because he had put Intercontinental Assets Group to bed by that time. J. Epstein and Company, 1988, which became a hedge fund manager, and as we talked about with the Bernie Madoff episode, if you haven't seen that, I'll link it below. This comes in 2 parts. He began managing hedge funds, and hedge funds are basically a grouping together of many investors to go after more risky investments. This includes a lot of options trading, which is where you basically bet on a stock going up or down rather than just on it going up. So there's risky real estate. There's lots of risky things that are invested in within a hedge fund, but because it's lots of people together with lots of different investments, they hope the more conservative investments will help hedge you against losses from the more radical investments. So that's what he specialized into, and at one point had billions under management within his hedge fund. Lots of times they operate on kind of a secret thing where you don't really know the ins and outs. Only the SEC knows that. And he capitalized on that, having billions under management and taking hefty fees off of almost every trade. So he became a billionaire based off it. Some estimates toward the end, he was estimated at bringing home $500 million a year, which is $500 million a year from his investments and his company. That's mind-boggling, people. Mind-boggling. One of the major reasons that he jumped from managing millions to managing billions was the fact that Victoria's Secret CEO took a huge, he shall remain nameless, but he took which it wouldn't take much research if you're so inclined to find his name, but he took a huge interest in Epstein in the early 90s and invested all of Victoria's Secret's assets, their retirement, their pension, as well as his personal assets to the tune of $6 billion to Epstein's hedge fund. And he managed that for many, 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 many years. It was also not too long ago that his little black book surfaced, Epstein's little black book, where you had names of everybody that he associated with. We're talking the Trumps, the Clintons, the royal family of England, many Hollywood celebrities like Harvey Weinstein. Of course, why not? Two scumbags would run together. A whole list of foreign dignitaries, government officials. Jeffrey Epstein was well connected, and that's why many people think he was able to avoid prosecution for so long. In fact, in 1996, like a lot of very ultra wealthy people do, he was able to move a lot of his assets offshore to St. Thomas. He's rebased Jeffrey Epstein Company, J. Epstein Company in St. Thomas in the U.S. Virgin Islands, where he was able to save up to 90% of his own taxes. And again, not paying fair share of taxes, which I think everybody should do, no matter your wealth. And don't want to get into politics, but I think it's a travesty the way that people are allowed to take billions offshore while struggling to make 5 and 6 figures have to pay a chunk. So it's just really weird how that happens. But because of his connections, he was able to put money away, several countries, get it offshore where it wasn't taxed as heavily, and that's how his wealth grew. He also purchased private islands around the Virgin Islands and Palm Beach, Florida, and became a regular on both the New York City jet set social crowd as well as Palm Beach. In 2005, the first charges of a sexual nature against Jeffrey Epstein were filed in Palm Beach, Florida. At the time, our now Labor Secretary Alexandria Acosta was the U.S. prosecuting attorney for the Southern District of Florida. This is him pictured here. He was in charge of the case because it alleged that a 14-year-old girl had been taken to Epstein's Palm Beach, Florida mansion by an older girl, which it turns out would later be kind of his thing. He kind of ran what you would call a pyramid scheme for sexual abuse. He would bring girls in, do unscrupulous things with them, to them, and then send them back out to find other girls in exchange for money. And her 14-year-old daughter was taken to his mansion where she was paid $300 for a massage and a strip. She was allegedly undressed down to her underwear while this happened. And the reason I'm even bringing this up, because there have been over 35 charges or accusations levied against him, is because the type of deal he got on his prosecution was unfounded, all because of Mr. Acosta here, who claims he was told by people higher up than him that Epstein was a government agent. He was way above his pay grade, and he should just leave it alone and go easy on him. Of course, that's not documented anywhere. We only have Acosta's word on that, but believe what you will. In June of 2008, Epstein pled guilty to a state charge because, as part of his deal, he was granted immunity from federal prosecution because I think he realized this was going to go across state lines because some of it happened in New York, some of it happened in Florida. So He was granted full immunity from federal prosecution along with every potential co-conspirator, which was huge and widely unfounded. So the deal that Acosta struck with him had never been seen before. It was widely criticized as giving preferential treatment to the mega rich and the mega well connected. But of course that happens because people in high, powerful places many times think they're above the law, and in many cases they are. Believe what you want about that. But he pled guilty to one of 2 counts of prostitution of the girl below the age of 18. He was sentenced to 18 months in prison. Instead of serving it in a normal Florida state prison, he was incarcerated at the Palm Beach County Stockade, which is the county jail, in a private wing, and was allowed after 3.5 months to go on work release, which meant for up to 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, he was outside in Palm Beach, flying to Florida, flying to the Virgin Islands, conducting business as usual, and then going back to sleep in a private wing at the jail. Think about that. Life went on fairly regularly for Mr. Epstein. He was contributing to a myriad of different political candidates, including Bill Clinton, who was said to have been on his private jet up to 27 times, even though the Clintons claim it was only 4 times. He went on to hobnob, of course, with the Trumps. President Trump was seen with him on camera at Mar-a-Lago back in the late 80s, early 90s, and said he was a very fine person and a fun person to be around and has an affinity for beautiful younger women, just like I do. And then recently, after everything broke, Trump was recorded as saying he did not like Epstein, threw him out of his club. So, of course, you can say what you want to about that, but I believe it's just human nature to try to protect yourself. I can't say I wouldn't have done the same thing had this guy been my friend, and then later on I found out about this. I probably would have turned on him too. So that's not unnatural and doesn't prove that Trump did anything, just like it doesn't prove the Clintons did anything, because wealthy people tend to run in circles. Along this time, Prince Andrew, the Duke of York from the UK, was also accused of having sex 3 times with an underage girl at Epstein's New York City mansion, a charge that Buckingham Palace denies to this day. As again, we'll never know. No formal charges have been filed against the prince, but he was named as a perpetrator in one of the other suits. From 2008 to 2019, there was a myriad of civil suits taking place in 2008, 2014, 2015, 2016. The one in 2016 was the one that named President Trump for having sex with a 13-year-old in Epstein's New York City apartment. That suit was dropped and settled out of court, as most of them were. But it was because, along with suits in 2018, the most recently in 2019, some of those are still pending, though most of them have been settled out of court or dropped. July 6, 2019, because of all of the civil suits, the Southern District of New York took an interest in the case and began investigating it. They investigated over a period of 13 months, culminating in Epstein's arrest at Teterboro Airport in New Jersey on July 6, 2019 on sex trafficking charges, as well as other improprieties, but the sex trafficking charges were the main thing. July 8th, he had already been sitting in prison. He was not granted parole. He was not granted bond or anything of this nature. He was required to remain at the Manhattan Correctional Center, which is a very well-known maximum security detainment center. He was told he would sit there until the day of his trial without bond, because they felt with all his connections all over the world and given what had happened in Florida, he was a flight risk. So there he sat. And they officially charged him on July 8th with sex trafficking and conspiracy to traffic minors for sex for what people called a multi-level marketing sex scheme, where he would send finder girls out to find him more girls almost on a daily basis, allegedly. Clintons don't come for me. Allegedly to keep his sexual escapades fresh. July 23rd, Epstein was found injured and semi-conscious around 1:30 a.m. in his cell in the Manhattan Correctional Center. He didn't remember what happened. His cellmate, who is a former New York City police officer now accused of murder, also said he didn't see anything. So kind of a hush-hush situation going on there. As a result, Epstein was placed on suicide watch and sequestered, where people would check on him every 30 minutes, and he had to have a light on his cell at all times. The only thing he was allowed to have in his cell was a Bible. On July 29th, because of his upbeat attitude, suicide watch was eventually ended for him, though officers were still told to check on him as often as possible. All of that culminated 6:30 a.m. August 10th, where Epstein was found dead in his cell from an apparent self-inflicted hanging. And that's where the major part of the conspiracies start, because there was a lot of improprieties around that. He was alone in the cell. It was well lit, but how did he have something in there to hang himself with? And also, how did it happen when he was supposed to be checked on every 30 minutes? Come to find out that they were very short-staffed. A lot of the guards on duty were working either mandatory overtime or on their 5th or 6th straight day of overtime, and a lot of people can concede that maybe it was just overtired and negligence that led to it, but there are also other theories. Because of the fact that this was happening in New York and not covered by the Florida deal, which granted him federal immunity, this was being pursued by the state of New York, so all of that was out the door. So you had the potential of a lot of high-powered co-conspirators, their crimes coming to light. As I mentioned, those were high-level politicians, CEOs, foreign dignitaries, foreign royal families, you name it. Their names had the potential. Whether that would have resulted in prosecution or not, we don't know, but it definitely would have resulted in a scandal that could have cost millions and billions of dollars. So therefore, a lot of people believe that Epstein was silenced ultimately. I've heard the names of the Clintons pitched around in my joke. That was just a joke. We have no evidence that the Clintons had anything to do with it, though their name is in the mix, as well as Trump's, as well as the royal family of the UK, as well as many Hollywood insiders, including Kevin Spacey, Harvey Weinstein, a lot of people that had a lot to lose may have been behind it. It could have also just been an out-and-out suicide, and as my wife likes to point out, it could have also been another prisoner or a corrections officer that did it for very little money just to get rid of him. So there are lots of ways it could have happened, and that's the reason I'm saying I'm not fully convinced it was just a straight out suicide, but I'm also not convinced that it was murder either. So I'm kind of in the middle. What do you guys think? Tell me below. As a result, on August 29th, the official charges against Epstein were dropped because they could not prosecute a dead man, but the Judge Berman, federal Judge Berman, did say that he was in favor of continuing the investigation and fleshing out any potential co-conspirators. And the Southern District of New York's prosecution office absolutely agreed with that and said they would continue to try to find co-conspirators. But the deal is, how well will that investigation go with the main focus being a dead man? We remain to be seen what's going to happen in this case. I'm interested to see if they will pursue it, and I'm interested to see how many people will be fleshed out and what the consequences will be. What do you guys think? That's the short and sweet on Jeffrey Epstein, his sordid life. I didn't cover too much about his business because, suffice it to say, he was a brilliant Wall Street guru that had billions under management, and that's where the most of his fortune came from. It's also remained to see what will happen with his assets because they have been frozen, and we'll see. What do you guys think? Let me know your theories below. I hope you enjoyed this. I did. Took me a long time to research it and get it all straight, but I appreciate you guys watching. As always, it's been a pleasure. 𝗙𝗵𝗁cie, y'all. Keto comic out.